Hey everybody, it's me, TJ. Now, I know I said that the next episode of Mii Time was going to be a question and answer, but as you know, we just got done with E3 2017, and as I am starting to collect my thoughts and reflect on my impressions of the show, I decided that I don't really want to approach it objectively. I want to approach it from the perspective that I'm most familiar and most comfortable with, and that's mine. So I figured what better way to do that than a show that is specifically designed for the format of me expressing my opinions, and that's Mii Time. So here we are. But before I start laying down opinion bombs, let's cross our T's and dot our J's.
The views and opinions expressed here are ours alone and do not necessarily reflect those of this channel or its affiliates. And we reserve the right to alter them at any time if it's convenient or because we feel like it. So, take this.
Before I get too deep into this, I would be remiss if I did not begin by thanking my amazing, wonderful, intelligent, and beautiful wife for manning the fort while I was out running about taking care of video game business. She was handling the kids, and that's no small feat. They are amazing kids, but they're a handful, and she handled it like a champion. E3 is the place where video game companies lay out their plans for the future, and Nintendo decided to stick mostly to 2017, although they did give us a little sneak peek into some of their 2018 plans. Last year, Nintendo's booth was 100% dedicated to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Atmospherically, it was something quite spectacular, and you have the entire, all of Nintendo's efforts poured into just one single game. I can't recall a time in E3 history where that had been the case. And so going into this E3, there's a lot of speculation as to what Nintendo was going to do. They had announced ahead of time that they were going to do a 20-some minute spotlight, and that had some people a little concerned because they didn't think that was enough time to really lay out their plans. I was excited about it, and it's because I felt like in 20 minutes, there's not really much time to put a lot of padding in there. They trimmed out the fat and they just lay out the bullet points or the headlines. And I feel like, by and large, that's what it wound up being. There were, of course, the usual suspects, or at least the ones that we expected to make an appearance, like Splatoon 2, and ARMS, and Pokken Tournament, and Mario Odyssey, which I think most people were under the impression was going to be the star of the show, and it was. But they did manage to slip in a few surprises, mostly in the form of Amiibo. And I couldn't believe how many Amiibo were announced. Before the show, you may remember I appeared on an E3 predictions newscast with Amiibo Jason, and he asked what would be the big surprise for me. What if I could have anything at E3, what would I want? And I said, I want more Zelda Amiibo. But at the same time, I also knew that that was highly unrealistic. Before the show even started, we already have 3 unreleased Legend of Zelda Amiibo, the Skyward Sword Link, Twilight Princess Link, and Majora's Mask Link. So I didn't really expect that there was going to be a whole lot of news on the Legend of Zelda Amiibo front, but oh my goodness! Not only do we get more Zelda Amiibo, but we get the 4 champions from Breath of the Wild. And I can't help but wonder if there were always plans for these characters to be there, but they didn't announce them or release them from the beginning because they didn't want to have any spoilers in the game. Or is this just a way to help peddle the DLC? Are they in some way connected to the DLC? All the questions. All the questions. You guys know I badly want to customize these new Legend of Zelda Amiibo, the Amazon exclusive Skyward Sword Link, Best Buy exclusive Majora's Mask, and the GameStop exclusive Twilight Princess Link. We've never seen them before, so even being able to just get my eyes on the actual Amiibo and see them in the 360 degree and kind of let my mind start to absorb their shape and scale and predict some of the materials and their flexibility. For me, that's actually really helpful in planning ahead. I know that they're almost out. We'll see them this Friday. Oh my goodness. But there's no telling that I'm actually going to be able to acquire all of them. They are all exclusives, and we're going to do our best, guys. We're going to do our best. We're going to go out there and we're going to try to get them. But it was nice to be able to see them for the first time in person. We also got information about the DLC packs. They're both teased in the spotlight, and the first DLC pack, which releases in less than 2 weeks. Oh my goodness. Goodbye world, goodbye life. And then subsequently, pack 1 was detailed quite extensively by the Treehouse. And then pack 2, wow, I don't even know what to make of it. All we got was these images of the 4 champions. We know that it's called the Champions Ballad. And then we also have this new artwork that features all 4 champions and Zelda right front and center. No Link at all. So there's been speculation, are we going to explore Hyrule in Breath of the Wild with a new playable character, perhaps? I don't know. I would tend to think not. Maybe it's just this story. I've heard people at the show suggest that maybe, not Nintendo people, this is all unofficial stuff, this is my speculation and the speculation of the people who I spoke to, that perhaps we have the story that took place 100 years prior, before Link needed to go into the deep slumber and before Calamity Ganon quite conquered Hyrule. Maybe the story of how the champions are conquered. I don't know. In fact, it doesn't really even matter because I love so much about Breath of the Wild that no matter what it is, I'm sure that I'm going to love it. And if you're a fan of Breath of the Wild, I'm sure you're going to love it too, and it's definitely worth it. So I encourage you wholeheartedly to pick it up. I know a lot of people collect Amiibo because they really like having these little figures, and I of course love that aspect of it too. The figures look amazing, but it's not really the most compelling reason to own for me. I love that they're these great little figures, but I also really love, the reason why I bought them is because they do have this deeper purpose with in-game functionality. So I look at these 4 Breath of the Wild Amiibo, and I just can't help but think, what do they do? I can't wait. Is it that their functionality is specifically intended for use with the DLC pack? That would be kind of awesome. Well, actually, it might upset some people, but I think it would be super cool. I think the most likely thing would be some kind of item drop, but it would be awesome if they did something a little bit more than that. Maybe they drop the exclusive weapons that you can get in the game. If I had to venture a guess, I'd say you probably get like Rivali's Great Eagle Bow if you scan him in. That might be his rare drop, and otherwise you wind up getting some Tabantha wheat or something. I don't know. I hope that there's something more than that, but that would still be pretty cool. It would be another way to be able to get these weapons since they are kind of hard to replace once they break in the game. Although if the drop rate is as infrequent as the Bigoron sword, which took me like, and I'm not exaggerating here. I'm a storyteller. I'm not exaggerating when I say it took me over 1,000 scans, well over 1,000 scans to get that Bigoron sword. And I finally did it by using the save exploit. I just got sick of it over and over again. So I saved the game and then I scanned the Amiibo, and when I didn't get the drop that I wanted, I did it again. I was able to complete the Ocarina of Time outfit 10 times over before I even got a single Bigoron sword, or Big Goron. How do you say it? And if that wasn't enough for new Legend of Zelda Amiibo, Nintendo just went wild. People were wondering, are Amiibo on the decline? Are they done? There's not quite that same level of hype. Collectors are starting to get wearied. The number of Amiibo are starting to become just insurmountably high. People have lost hope of collecting some of the more rare ones. So are we at the end of this? And Nintendo seems to not listen to any of that noise, and they just doubled down. They tripled down. We have now 2, and here's where I have to confess I was way off the mark. I predicted for like the last 3 E3s that we were going to see something Samus or Metroid related, and it didn't happen. So I was pretty confident that Nintendo was going to be completely mum's the word on Metroid, especially when you consider that as far as their franchises are concerned, Metroid does not historically have a very good international showing. It might be a popular series and it might be very beloved, but it doesn't produce the kinds of numbers that Nintendo, I would think, would be aiming for, trying to get the system off the ground in the wake of the Wii U. But I'm really delighted that everybody who was hurting for that Metroid, that was just clamoring for that Metroid, got that this year. And they started, I'm sure this was very deliberately, by introducing Metroid Prime 4. Now, people already have in their heads, this is happening. It wasn't anything other than just a statement of intent. They're just saying, hey, we're developing this. We got nothing to show you, but we're going to show you something else Metroid related, and we don't want another Federation Force freak out, so we need to get it clear and present in your minds that the game that you want, the game that you've been clamoring for, is in fact coming. So relax. And then later on in the presentation, they did announce a remake of Samus Returns for the Game Boy. I keep calling it the Game Boy. I'm old school, guys. You got to forgive me. I grew up on the Game Boy. So on the 3DS, and it looks awesome. I'm going to admit, I love Samus as a character, but the Metroid games are really hard for me to play. I can't play any of the Prime games, and I definitely can't play any of the 2D side-scrollers, so most of my Samus interactions are in Smash Brothers, where I understand the game, and it's hard to get lost. It's a little bit hard. At some stages I get lost if we got 8 players, but it's a lot harder to get lost in Smash Brothers than it is in any of the Metroid games. But this game, I think, solves a lot of my problems. It appears to let you be able to put pins down on your map so that you can keep track of where you are, and it also gives you some much more refined controls of Samus's arsenal. You can shoot in a 360-degree range, it appears, and that's cool, that's exciting. But we also get 2 new Metroid Amiibo, and one of them is literally a Metroid, a squishy Metroid, which seems to have people very excited. And then Samus in her cool, very iconic pose from the original game art that this one is based on. Hey Pikmin! This was also the first time we were able to see the Pikmin Amiibo in person. Now, I'm a little bit sad that it doesn't have the purple Pikmin and the poison white Pikmin. I really like those ones, and I guess I'm just gonna have to get an extra one and customize it and put those 2 on there, but that's okay. It'll be a fun little project. Maybe it'll be a project that we can do together on Custom Conquest. I gotta say, it's a fine looking Amiibo. I really love the Pikmin. I think this little Amiibo conveys so much personality, and it's definitely a must pick up for me. We also got some pretty sweet Fire Emblem Amiibo. Crom, which I don't consider to be all that surprising. I think it was only a matter of time before a Crom Amiibo became a reality, but we also got a Tiki. And the only reason I even know who Tiki is because of the iPhone app, Fire Emblem Heroes. You may hear me mistakenly say a number of times Fire Emblem Heroes when I in fact mean Fire Emblem Warriors. I did mean Fire Emblem Heroes for the phone because that's the iPhone app. But at the show and pretty regularly, I say Fire Emblem Heroes when I mean to say Fire Emblem Warriors because Heroes and Warriors are sometimes used interchangeably depending on what you're talking about, and they sound so similar that it is difficult for this brain to be able to keep them straight. So forgive me in advance. You can lambaste me in the comments below if you hear me do it too frequently. Fire Emblem Warriors is a game I'm not surprised made an appearance at the show, but what did surprise me, and I'm not gonna lie, it really frustrated me. Every single time I checked the queue, the line was like 4 hours long. I think that they were running 2 machines, but I'm not for sure because it was so densely crowded that it was almost impossible to even see into that corner. I actually never made it within 20 feet of the unit. And that's just because of how densely packed the bodies were together. And while I'm talking about it, that was one of the big problems of the entire show, was there were almost no ways to be able to manage the crowds. On day 1, I went straight to Nintendo's booth. I pretty much lived there for most of the time, but I got right into that Mario Odyssey line. Then I realized there really wasn't a Mario Odyssey line. I knew that this was going to be one of the most difficult games to get hands-on at the show because it was super popular. So I just kind of found my way to what appeared to be the end of a line. I asked the people in front of me if they were waiting for Mario Odyssey. They said they were. And then as a Nintendo rep walked by, I just wanted to confirm because I had been standing there for like 15 minutes and I didn't want to be standing just idly. And he said, yeah, each kiosk has its own line, and the waits on the perimeter of this area are longer because people can see them. If you go on the inside, the lines are still pretty packed, but because of the limitations of the space, you can really only be like 6 bodies deep. I looked at my line and I did the math. I was already like 20 people back. Like, I'll take my chances on the inside. So I greased myself up and I squeezed my way through. I didn't really, but the bodies were packed so tightly that, you know, you're rubbing up on people if you're trying to get through. And I found my way to a line that was 6 bodies deep and, you know, kind of wedged myself in at the end of the line. I was able to do it in about an hour, which is still a long time to wait to try out a game. Okay, unpopular opinion time. In order to get this Super Mario Odyssey hat swag that they were passing out, you had to play the Super Mario Odyssey game. I think most people who went to the show wanted to play the game and would have been interested in playing the game even if it weren't for the hat. But I think that Nintendo would have been better served, and maybe some of these other companies too, if they didn't connect the swag to the game experience, because it actually just makes it harder to play the game. It becomes prohibitive to playing the game. I wish they had some kind of little carnival game in the corner that you can go win the swag hat, and then that would take attention away from the game boxes, and people who have an interest in playing it can get through a little bit quicker without having to wait through these extraneous lines for people whose main incentive to play it is coming home with a collectible. There's nothing wrong with collectibles, there's nothing wrong with swag, but it became potentially a barrier of entry. I'm not sure if the same number of people would have tried to play it if it wasn't for the incentive of getting the hat. Because you hear all day people going up to the Nintendo reps, I want that hat, how do I get that hat? And they say, go stand in that line. To Nintendo's credit, on day 2 they did sort it out better. They put up some partitions to create some alleyways so that you at least have the potential to pass through Nintendo Land. They kind of dressed it to look like New Donk City, which was a beautiful thing, and I didn't actually get to appreciate the true splendor of their setup until the very last day, the very end of the show, after everyone else had already vacated. Then when you subtract 10,000 bodies from this space, the carpet was designed to look like roads, and you have the city facades of New Donk City. It was awesome looking, but you really have a hard time appreciating it when most of it's covered up by human bodies. There's a good side to it too. When you have that many collective minds in one place, all excited about the same thing, there's an energy, and it's palpable. It's so palpable you can smell it, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But all this to say, the biggest failure, I think, of E3 is that it created an environment where it was almost impossible to play certain games. Here's my thing with Fire Emblem Heroes. Warriors. Fire Emblem Warriors. I badly wanted to try it out. I love Hyrule Warriors. I love the Dynasty Warriors games. And Hyrule Warriors it was my favorite game I'd ever played before Breath of the Wild. I look at these Fire Emblem games and I can't play them. I love the characters from Smash Brothers, but I don't have time for these long JRPGs. I like the characters. I want to get more deeply invested in their games. I just can't do it. So I look at something like Fire Emblem Warriors and I think, this is my speed. No turn-based nonsense. I don't have to give the enemy a turn to hit me. I can go in there and I can blast away at them. I'm all about that. It's the perfect recipe for destruction, mayhem, and entertainment for me. I wanted to get hands-on. I wanted to be able to experience this game. By day 3, I had come to the realization and reconciled myself to the fact that I was never going to get behind that kiosk. It was just too densely packed with people. Fortunately, and I want to thank my Nintendo Wire colleague Jennifer Birch for making this possible, we got into the Nintendo Media Lounge and it gave me a chance to be able to go one-on-one with the game.
It's on! It is on!
And it was awesome.
Button mashing! The best way to kick some tail!
It's what you expect. There weren't a whole lot of surprises.
Just shove them in the corner and keep tapping the Y button. That's my secret tip for all of you at home. And I won! That's all you need to do.
If you like Hyrule Warriors, and if you like Dynasty Warriors, you will like this game. It just puts a Fire Emblem spin on it. And there are some cool things. It does honor the weapons triangle, which is nice. I didn't expect that. I kind of thought that they were just gonna throw it up into the air and be like, that's not how this game works. But they're finding cool ways to implement Fire Emblem elements into this Dynasty Warriors style game.
Again, button mashing in the corner, it works. It's my proven strategy. It's my tip for all of you at home.
We know at this point that the Crom Amiibo and Tiki Amiibo are compatible with this game, and probably, predictably, the other Fire Emblem characters will be too. But at present, Nintendo is not prepared to announce what exactly that functionality is, so that's something exciting to look forward to. What I can say on the Fire Emblem Amiibo front is that Crom looks awesome, and Tiki does too.
As we've come to expect from the Warrior series, there's a whole host of hyper-stylized moves, including a feature where you can pair a couple characters up to deal out even more damage. Making up for not being in Smash Brothers!
Oh, how long we waited for Cloud, Corn, and Bayonetta. We waited, and Nintendo rewarded our patience with not just a single amiibo of Cloud, Corn, and Bayonetta, but we also get the Player 2 versions. We got our first look at these characters in the physical form at E3, and they did not disappoint. They look amazing. I cannot wait to own them, plug them into Smash Brothers, and finally complete Smash Supremacy. Dreams do come true, people. Another game that I have to talk about is Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. It's a game where I feel like I was justifiably suspicious. I just couldn't quite wrap my head around what it was. and the game was impossible to play at Nintendo's booth. There was really no time where there was a lull in the lines. The lines were so intense, they actually closed the lines. You couldn't wait. If they allowed the lines to continue beyond where they were, it would become a fire violation, fire hazard. So it was really daunting to try to play these. But fortunately, they also had a bunch of them over at the Ubisoft booth. And so I was able to levy my media badge to kind of get nearer to the front of the line to get hands-on with this game. And you know, Mario & Rabbids is exactly the kind of game that requires a hands-on demo. I personally have no frame of reference with the Rabbids. I've never played a Rabbids game before. I'm not oblivious to the negative response that the game got, at least here in the West. I really don't know what the deal is with the Rabbids. I don't know anything about their games, but I love Mario games, and I was willing to give this game a chance, but not to the tune of 60 bucks. I wasn't gonna just buy it. It's a game that does require that you get a little bit of hands-on time with it before you know what it's about and before you can determine whether or not this is a game you think you'll have enough fun with to buy. I did. I definitely did, but it was so contingent upon me being able to get in front of that demo box. And once I was able to play it, and once I was able to understand what this game is, I was like, this is fun. This is simple, but yet it also requires some strategy. It's kind of exactly what you want from a game. I love that Nintendo pretty much gave Ubisoft the reins. They said, use these Mario characters, make anything but a Mario game. And they went to town and they created something that is a lot of fun. On top of that, they also created these really cool collectibles. They have these statues and then also these little Amiibo-sized figures. I say Amiibo-sized figures, not Amiibo, and I don't know if maybe Nintendo said, hey, we got our own plans for Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, and Peach Amiibo. We don't need any Rabbid Amiibo. We're not going to support them in the future. We don't want them to have cross-functionality with other games. I don't know if that conversation happened or not, but for some reason, these are not Amiibo. But they could be. They will be, because I'm going to customize them into Amiibo. That's right. I picked up those little 3-inch figures. If you want them, you can buy them. They're out there. They're expensive, but they're out there. My wife loves Selfie Peach. It turned a lot of people off, but it is hilarious, guys. I'm not kidding. She's the highlight of the show. She gets in the demo pretty early in the game, she gets thrown in front of this tremendously perilous situation. In the background, all these horrible things are happening, and it looks like her doom is imminent. So her response to this is to pull out her camera and shoot a selfie of herself in front of this great peril. It's a riot. The game combines this really cool humor with it's beautiful. It's glorious to behold visually, and it has this bright, vibrant Mushroom Kingdom that's been taken over by the Rabbids. And my favorite thing about the game, Rabbid Kong. Something about that is just, it cracks me up. Here's my hope for Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. The demo that we played at E3, free demo, downloadable from the eShop. It would be such a brilliant move, because I really don't think, honestly, you sell this game on people unless you let them try it. Give away this demo. It's just a couple stages, just whets your palate on the game, shows you everything you need to know to determine whether or not this is going to be a worthwhile investment of your hard-earned money. I would say it probably is. If you like Nintendo games, I think you're gonna like this game. But don't take my word for it. Play it. Find some way to try it out and see if it's your speed. So my impression of Mario Odyssey, it's nice to get back into the sandbox, play a game that kind of is reminiscent of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. I really enjoyed my time with both of those games, particularly Mario 64. It really had some magic about it. And I'm hoping this game captures that same essence. There is one thing that did kind of nag me. The game design is super cool. The physics are super cool. But Mario moves really slow. I'm coming fresh on the heels of Mario 3D World. That's a game I play pretty regularly because my daughter loves it. Mario moves similarly enough in Odyssey as he does to 3D World that I'm expecting the controller to function in the same way. I'm inputting certain buttons and I'm having certain expectations. And one of those is I want Mario to run. I want him to run faster. The way that you change Mario's speed in this game is not unlike the other 3D Marios, where the amount that you move the joystick determines how fast he goes. If you do just a little bit, he tiptoes, and if you go really fast, he runs. And I use that term loosely because his run is like a jog, a slow jog. So that did kind of bother me. Maybe I would acclimate to it as I played the game more. I remember coming back from E3 last year, I had the same impression with Link from Breath of the Wild. I'm used to running around super fast in Hyrule Warriors. That's the game I was playing at the time. And then all of a sudden I have this highly prohibitive stamina meter and Link is just running very slowly. I gotta say, playing the game, that never bothered me. I never felt like Link moved too slow. I felt like there were a lot of ways to expedite your travel. Maybe Mario's gonna be like that too. But at least in the stage that I played, he felt really, really slow. Also, I don't know if for me motion controls are the way to play that game. If anyone is an advocate for motion controls, it's me, because it's kind of a simplification. If you can input some complex button sequence or you can just do a subtle gesture, give me the gesture. I think it's a great way to narrow the gap between my intention and the game. But I found, at least with Mario Odyssey, that the controller inputs were too similar to each other for how distinct Mario's behavior was. And they didn't connect enough for my brain to process that. Again, this is something I might be able to acclimate to, but the difference of going like this and this and this wasn't quite enough in the moment for what Mario's actions are. So I'm constantly making his behavior something different than my intention, and that just made it a little bit less fun. But again, we got a 10-minute demo here, and I don't expect to master the game in that amount of time. What I see excited me. It's a game that I have no doubt I'm gonna pick up. I think it's gonna be a blast. The hat possession motif is really interesting and super cool. The idea of becoming a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a bullet or a ball of electricity, all that stuff's really awesome. And I'm excited to see what other things this game has to offer. Along with it, we got these great amiibo. Wedding Bowser, Wedding Peach, and Wedding Mario. We already know that they're sold individually as well as in a 3-pack. I can't even imagine how many cake toppers Nintendo is gonna sell here. People who don't even wanna use these in their game, they don't care about their amiibo functionality, they don't care about them as collectible figures, they are just huge Nintendo fans and they wanna put them on their cake. But what I'm really curious to find out is, of the people who do use these as wedding toppers, let's say that the Peach amiibo is gonna represent the bride, I wonder how many grooms are going to use Bowser for themselves and how many grooms are going to choose Mario? That's funny. And actually, the way that the figures are posed, it looks like if you remove Peach from the equation and push Mario and Bowser closer together, it looks like they're ready to take their relationship to the next level. Maybe. But Mario Odyssey amiibo were not the only Mario-themed figures that we're getting. They showed off more amiibo from the Super Mario line, a Goomba and a Koopa Troopa. I've got the distinct notion that that is not going to represent the entire line. I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw some of the other longtime holdouts like a Bowser Jr. figure. They just maybe didn't have prepared in time for the show or didn't want to overwhelm people more than they already did. But I would expect, I could be wrong on this, that when Goomba and Koopa Troopa do arrive, they're also going to be met with a few other amiibo that would also seem appropriate to the Mario series, maybe to the tune of 5 or 6 total. Let me know in the comment section below what Mario series amiibo you'd still like to see that aren't a part of the collection yet. I know we all want Bowser Jr. Are you hankering for a Shy Guy, maybe a Bullet Bill, maybe a Piranha Plant? Now that we've started to venture more into generic enemy range with both Boo and then now Koopa Troopa and Goomba, the sky's the limit. I also got to try out Sonic Forces. Whereas Mario felt too slow, for me, Sonic felt too fast. I want a happy medium right there. The only time I ever knew where I was after I crashed into something. You know, to be honest, I actually had more fun with the Sonic ring jumping game. They put us on this trampoline in front of a green screen and let us kind of do a couple jumps and made this little video out of it. So that was, to me, more fun than the actual game experience. As you all know, Nintendo is the company that speaks the language of my heart. I don't typically play games on other systems. I haven't owned an Xbox ever, and I haven't owned a PlayStation since the original one. So all the games I play are on Nintendo, but there were a few games at E3 that I wanted to try out. I really wanted to try out Dragon Ball Z Fighter, but like any of the other popular titles, the line was out of control. There was no way I was going to be able to get behind this machine. Whereas the wait time for Fire Emblem Heroes was 4 hours, the wait time for Dragon Ball was over 9,000! I also wanted to see more about the Lord of the Rings Shadow of War game. I don't know that they had a playable demo. Maybe they did. If they did, I missed it. But they were doing some screenings that I can only imagine gave you a more in-depth look at the game and its mechanics. But I couldn't see it because every showtime was filled the second that... They were like filled 4 shows before the next show even began. So I had to settle with riding a dragon. There was one non-Nintendo game that I spent a lot of time with called Circle of Saviors. It's a VR game. Let me tell you a little something about myself. I am not built for VR. I am highly prone to motion sickness. I get violently ill if I do a ride at Disneyland like the teacups. I cannot be in a vehicle unless I'm operating it. Flying is a nightmare for me. My body utterly betrays me, and I feel nauseous, I get a pounding migraine, so I tend to steer clear of VR. It's the kind of thing that I wouldn't expect myself to be able to handle. When I walked past Circle of Saviors, what did I see but this tremendous environment where you're fighting all of these orcs and ogres, and you have to defend yourself with a flaming sword. I just sat there thinking, oh, I wish I could do this. And my Nintendo Wire colleagues pointed out, you probably can, TJ, because your environment is not moving. You are. And then it's going to feel a lot more like real life than if you're on some kind of roller coaster or tracked VR. So that emboldened me enough to give it a try. My deepest thanks to Taka and the entire Circle of Saviors team for giving me such access to the game and letting me try it out, and also letting me interview them about the game. Let me tell you something else about me that you probably already know if you've been around here for a while. I am a professional sword fighter. That's my job. I've been doing it out here in LA for about 15 years, and I really wanted to see how real-life sword fighting skills would apply in this virtual reality environment. I wanted to see if I would be better at this game as a result of real-world skills. And I kind of feel like they translate pretty well. This game provided for me the experience that I was kind of hoping to get from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Nintendo boasted a 1-to-1 movement ratio between the Wii Motion Plus and Skyward Sword, but it really wasn't 1-to-1. It behaved close enough to be able to get through the game without too much trouble, but this was true 1-to-1. What I did, I saw myself performing through the VR headset at the same time as I was doing it in literally real time. I'll tell you the biggest difference between being in a real fighting scenario and what it was in this game is depth perception. I had to recalibrate to determine how far away something was from me. And by and large, it was where I expected it to be, but because we have infinite focus, there's no natural depth of field. You don't really have that natural drop off in the distance like you do in real life, where you can tell how close something really is. But the reality of how close I felt it was and how the game responded was about what I thought it would be, so I didn't really have too much problems there. If it looked like something was a little bit out of my sword range, it was a little bit out of my sword range. For the purposes of the demo, the enemy behaviors were quite simplistic, but they each had their own little way of attacking. They were color-coded, so it was easy to tell who was what and how they were going to approach you in battle. It was really a lot of fun. It's a game I could see myself wanting to spend a lot more time with. I'm in the process of putting together a much more extensive review of Circle of Saviors, and it will also include an interview with Taka from 5-4, the company behind the game. And I hope that you'll check that out. It really is a fun game and there's a lot to it. I'll stick an annotation to that video somewhere right over here as soon as I get it finished up. I hope you'll check it out. I'm already out here in LA, so E3 isn't that far of a trek for me, but the Nintendo Wire team came from all over the country. It was great to connect with them, these people who I work with on a very regular basis, but I never get to see, certainly never get to see in person. Amiibo Jason, Happily Candied, and I had a chance to go to my place of business where I work at Swordplay Studios in Burbank. My swordmaster, Tim Wesky, Hollywood fight coordinator, opened the doors for us and gave us the run of the studio and let us put together a little fight sequence for Jason and Lauren to be able to cross blades in an epic showdown. We had fun. It was nice to be able to decompress a little bit after a day of long lines and heavy LA traffic. Watch out, Game of Thrones. Amiibo Jason's coming for you. So my takeaway, I think that what was announced at E3 this year from Nintendo is very exciting. I like the trajectory of the Switch right now. I've said many times, I don't think that the Switch is ready yet. I don't think that there's any justifiable reason for it to be on the market. I think it got rushed to market because the Wii U kind of fell flat. Up to this point, the Switch has been little more than a more portable Wii U port device. But E3 this year gave us a little better look at where the Switch is headed and what's going to distinguish it from the Wii U, most significantly with Mario Odyssey. But I'm not going to buy a Switch for it. I'm still holding out. There's two things at this point that are going to get me to buy a Switch. One of them being a special limited edition Zelda version. I won't be able to resist that. Or two, when they finally announce Smash for Switch. Then there'll be a whole catalog of games already released for me. But as for right now, I'm still enjoying playing the games that are out for the Wii U. The two games that I play the most are Breath of the Wild, which was developed for the Wii U, and in my opinion, I think it's better on the Wii U, certainly with respect to the controller interface, and Smash Brothers. So I'm not quite ready to retire my Wii U yet, since there's no smashing to be had on the Switch. Despite people's predictions, Nintendo keeps making compelling reasons to go back to your 3DS. I don't really see that thing going anywhere anytime soon. The E3 floor had some serious problems, managing traffic, managing bodies, getting people from place to place, and allowing media and fans there for the experience the chance to get hands-on time with the game. I don't know what the solution is, but I hope they figure out something. If E3 is really about the games, then you can't overlook giving people the opportunity to experience the games. If you did not make it to E3 this year, I wouldn't fret. I don't really think that you missed too much. Honestly, in all honesty, the coverage that you get on E3 from home is far superior. Seeing things on the floor is really tough. It's a lot easier to watch the treehouse from home. It's impossible to watch the treehouse at E3. In fact, the only way to really do it was for us to sit in the media lounge and watch it off of our iPhones and laptops, which would probably have been a lot more comfortable in our own homes. Playing the games was great when we got the chance to do it. I don't know that 10 minutes with Fire Emblem Warriors would justify a 4-hour wait time. Being able to get in with some of the publishers and some of the other companies, it does mitigate some of that. But really the highlight of E3 for me was the opportunity to connect with people who I seldom get to see in person on a regular basis. It was really a great opportunity to connect with old friends, colleagues, new friends, people whose work I respect and admire, champions, and occasionally even the chance to rub elbows with a legend. I want to thank all of you at home for spending your time with me, and I really want to thank all of my colleagues over at Nintendo Wire. I'm excited to know what announcements from E3 really got you ramped up. Let me know in the comment section below. What of these games are you going to be picking up? What of these games fell flat for you? How about the Amiibo? Are you excited about these? Are you as excited about these Amiibo as I am? And also, next episode, I promise, will be our Q&A. I also will have a big announcement, and I'm hoping you'll tune in for that. If you want your question answered here on Mii Time, you can leave it in the previous video, or you can also leave it in the comments section here below. I'll find it from either place, and then I will address your question. That's all I've got for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks for playing.